Hi, I'm Anthony Newbold. Welcome to A Closer Look. My guest this week is the Minister of Environment and Housing, the Honorable Romauld Ferreira. Minister, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Mr. Newbold.
And I look forward to doing this again because of but listen, let's talk,
Sure.
Let's begin with what is arguably your greatest success as Minister of the Environment and Housing, the New Providence landfill. You finally unloaded that. Must have been a load off your shoulders.
Well, let's begin at the first beginning, as they say in Long Island. The thing is when the minister's administration came to power, one of the things we recognized is we had to clean up New Providence and the country in general. And so what you see happening at the landfill is part of an overarching strategy to clean up New Providence. We realized and appreciated that when we started to clean up, we needed some place for the waste to go. And the standard procedures that we met in place at the landfill could no longer operate. I won't go into all the details of the fire, but everyone knows we had a very large fire that resulted in evacuations, etc. So one of the first things we did is we went to tender. We issued an RFP to enter in a private-public partnership for the deconstruction, remediation, and management of the New Providence sanitary landfill. So that was a very important component of cleaning up the country. And so what you see happening now is that they've taken over, they now begun their operations, and some of the things we see on there are nothing short of remarkable. I invite any of your guests or your listeners and viewers to go and take a look. And that works in tandem with the garbage collection because we wanted to increase garbage collection to twice weekly.
Right.
And we've done that.
Right.
And so we wanted to make sure that once we've increased the volume of waste being collected, that in itself had a place to be managed effectively.
Yeah, we're going to get to the garbage in a minute. So let's stay with the landfill for a moment. What exactly does that mean? You've signed a contract, somebody's taken over. It's a Bahamian group?
It is a completely Bahamian company. What we see and what we're saying is that the government is willing to enter into partnerships with capable Bahamians who we believe firmly can compete anywhere. And we've displayed that belief by entering into this public-private partnership. And they've taken over the day-to-day operations at the landfill.
What's different today than it was 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Well, there's some fundamental differences that are going on at the landfill. The reception area, as you enter, sort of on the eastern side, has been spruced up, cleaned up, and is there to receive all waste 7 days a week. So that's to discourage people from actually going to the landfill site. The landfill site proper, or the tipping site, is for more industrial activities. So residential waste, if you're a resident out there, you can take your waste there free of charge. When you go onto the landfill, what happened is that what they've done is they've created access roads. They've used some of the tires that were on site. They've shredded them, used that as a bedding for some of the roadways. So you have access roadways. They've segregated the site into different areas so that you can have metals go in one way, in construction waste go in another, household waste go in another. But more importantly, particularly with the household waste, there's immediate compaction and coverage. And we should start to see some of the long-term benefits of that, like reduction in odors, reduction in fly nuisances, reduction in rodents. So this is an important feature of the New Providence sanitary landfill. And by having those access roadways, it really allows persons who manage the landfill to deal with any kind of incidents like a fire, God forbid, in a very timely manner and in an efficient manner.
What's the guarantees there that there isn't going to be another fire sometime soon? Which is what brought this whole thing to everybody's attention.
Well, you can't guarantee that there will be no fires. All landfills have fires. The real issue is your ability to respond. And a big part of that response is to have the access roadways to get to the site. A big part of why the fire raged on in 2017 had to do with the fact that there were no access roadways for the firefighters to actually get to the point of contact where the fire was. And of course, compaction and coverage. Because when you cover it and you compact it, you actually reduce the amount of available oxygen which feeds the fire. Fire needs oxygen.
How does that working landfill now, we're going to say it's working for the moment, how does that fit in with the government's whole thrust for renewable energy?
Well, it fits in the sense that the operators at the landfill want to have as a component of their plan a renewable energy scheme with solar panels, et cetera. And so I understand that they're in talks with the Minister of Works, under whose purview industrial size generation of renewable energy falls.
Talking about waste, part of what blights this New Providence landscape is proliferation of derelict vehicles.
Correct.
Everywhere you turn.
Correct.
What are you doing about that? How, are those people at the landfill dealing with that, or is that something the ministry is dealing with?
There's an entity at the landfill that deals with the removal of waste, but it's not the same individuals for whom the public-private partnership was issued. Now, what we've done in this year is we've increased the budget for the removal of derelict vehicles and all bulk waste, particularly in the over-the-hill area, but throughout New Providence in general. So it's a constant battle because we've entered into the age of what we might term disposable vehicles. By that I mean it is cheaper in some instances to get a new vehicle versus to fix the existing one. And so we've increased the budget, and we're looking now, the government is actually open to all ideas from all players who want to be a part of the solution. Because when it comes to this issue, and it's a vexing issue, you have a lot of persons that complain about it, but very few people that are coming forward as wanting to partner with the government to say that we have a solution. There is an operator on site at the landfill, but there's more than enough of that business to go around. You have to remember that New Providence has tens of thousands of derelict vehicles, so there's more than enough. And if you consider the Family Islands, Abaco, Eleuthera, Exuma in particular, they're challenged with all of these issues. So if there's anyone else seeking to get into the business, we encourage it, and we will entertain all reasonable proposals.
We want to talk about renewable energy, what the government is doing in that regard, but we got to take a break.
Okay.
And we'll be back with more Closer Look, the Minister of Housing and Environment after this. Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Anthony Newbold, speaking with the Minister of Housing and Environment, the Honorable Romauld Ferreira, talking about renewable energy.
Sure.
The government has some plans for renewable energy. I think it's called 30-30.
Yes.
What does that mean?
That means then we met a goal in place to generate electricity, 30% of our electricity needs from renewable sources by 2030. And so that's a two-pronged approach. It's a bifurcated approach, meaning that BPL obviously is responsible for generation on an industrial scale, and of course, our renewable energy unit that's within the Ministry of Environment and Housing, which is responsible for promoting awareness of renewable energies and getting projects, international projects from international grant agencies to install renewable energies in public spaces, public parking lots, school buildings, etc.
And while BPL may be responsible for generation, you've gotten to a little bit of generation yourself.
Sure, but we did it in partnership with BPL because obvious example is what happened at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. The parking lot there, we have approximately 1 megawatt of renewable energies installed at that site. It's the first of its kind in the region. So when you said that the New Providence Sanitary Landfill was sort of our greatest achievement, you kind of deny our transcendence in a way, because because there's so much more to come. There's so much more to come, but obviously that's a very important thrust. So what we were trying to demonstrate is that projects like this are actually very possible. And we owe that from a grant from Masdar, which is affiliated with the United Arab Emirates, which is a $4 million+ grant. And as you can see, there's the solar car park, there's 2 rapid electric vehicle charging stations, because one of the things that the Bahamas has to come to grips with is there's going to come a time when there will only be electric vehicles. Now I know that may be hard to believe, but Europe will ban all internal combustion engines by 2040. The Ford Motor Company is looking to make all of their vehicles electric. So you can't stop it. Sort of the train is sort of out of the gate. You can't stop it. And so what we want to do is to help prepare and promote this awareness. And so we have some other projects lined up in that regard.
Who is feeding off of that solar park right now?
That is actually grid tied. so that during the day it goes into the grid and it goes along with BPL's distribution system. So we couldn't have done it without the cooperation of BPL, because obviously we needed their engineers in place to ensure the safety of the system and the system reliability, because we didn't want a situation where we started to feed things into the grid and it posed some sort of inherent risk to the workers at BPL and to the lines and the distribution system itself.
You have some solar projects lined up with some schools?
Yes, we do. Of course, we have Anatole Rogers, which we executed an agreement for. We hope to install another 400 and odd kW at that site. We have TG Glover, and then we have another exciting project lined up, which is at Office of the Prime Minister, where we will install another solar-covered car park. The idea is to capture the imagination of the Bahamian people. You see, when you really look at it, we are capable of great things. We want to capture the imagination of the Bahamian people because we know and we understand that being in the Tropic of Cancer, and I use that term in a geographical sense, we have all of this abundant sunlight. And our renewable energy solution for our country obviously relies on solar power. And how will that unfold? It's going to unfold like this. On a New Providence setting, where we are strapped for land and where most of the population lives, industrial solarization is going to amount, the equation is 1 megawatt equals 8 acres. And so you can see that that may not be a practical solution because you're going to be limited by available land. So what we hope to achieve in New Providence is public buildings like schools, post offices, the House of Parliament, all public buildings, car parks, to utilize those. And we encourage private residences as well to solarize. And that's why the duty was brought down on solar panels. Now, in a family island setting, and I like to use the example of Mayaguana. For those who don't know, Mayaguana has 3 settlements: Betsy Bay, Pirates Well, and Abrahams Bay. One in the east, one in the middle, and one in the west. But yet we are running distribution and transmission lines from a power station to power all of that. We want to introduce the concept of self-generation, and BPL is leading that charge, where they have a list of family islands where they have prioritized that they want to increase the renewable energy penetration. And if you think about that and let that sort of resonate, think about the savings in fuel and in hydrocarbons, in addition to reducing our carbon footprint as a nation. Because remember, in the face of climate change, and given the fact that our highest point is about 200 feet, which is not, is not much, we are challenged morally to do our part, to play our role in reducing our carbon footprint and reducing the impact of climate change.
And all of that means you're dealing with the environment, making sure it's clean, keeping it clean. You're charging people for despoiling the environment, if you will?
Well, we have the Environmental Health Services Act. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Environmental Health Services Act prescribes that certain kinds of behavior thou shalt not do. Right? It's framed in a thou shalt. And for years, the environmental courts have been sort of defunct. And what we did is we revived that. We brought that to life. And in bringing that to life, because, and I want to say this, we have, let's separate our society into 2 groups. We have the young people and we have the not so young people. So if you're not so young and you're driving down the road and you're throwing out your fast food container or your bottles out of your window, if you're 50 odd and you're doing that, I don't think there's much we can do with you in terms of changing your mindset other than to punish you, or other than to make you comply with the provisions of the Environmental Health Services Act. And then there's some people who seem just accustomed to nastiness. There's no other way to put it. And so we revived the court. Prosecutions are ongoing, fines are being issued, and we thank the Judicial Services, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Magistrate for being helpful in bringing that about. The other phase of that is to concentrate on the young people. And so you can see that we launched the Be a Hero campaign, because we believe that if we can get just that critical mass of young people, that critical mass of young Bahamians thinking differently about how they see our country, we can actually change our modern Bahamas.
Talk about fines, the environmental court. We're pretty much talking about people on the island of New Providence. For the most part, Carnival has been in the news recently. what they're doing in terms of investments, what they did in terms of the ocean.
Sure.
What's the position on that?
Our ministry was disgusted to learn those facts. I mean, that kind of environmental savagery will never be encouraged or tolerated by the Ministry of Environment and Housing, or by myself, for that matter. And so we were very displeased to learn that that was something that happened. It's a very, very unfortunate incident and a blight on our relationship. Now, that being said, the Ministry of Transport, through the Bahamas Maritime Authority and the Office of the Attorney General, has taken up the charge and is in active negotiations with them. But from a Ministry of Environment's point of view, we were very concerned because a lot of what was being disposed of, we regard as nutrient rich, and a big part of why our oceans are so beautiful, a big part of why our waters are so azure and clear is because we have no rivers, is because there are no nutrients feeding into it. So we don't take that lightly, and we certainly didn't appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to talk about land and housing. Take this final break, and we'll be back more on a closer look with the Minister of Housing and Environment, the Honorable Romauld Ferreira. Welcome back to A Closer Look. Anthony Newbold speaking with Minister Ferreira. I said we'd talk about land, and we will. But before we get to that,
Sure.
real quickly, garbage collection. What's happening with that? That's another area where people have expressed concerns.
Yes, people ought to notice now that they're getting twice collection. And I was trying to tie in at the very onset. One of the reasons why we wanted to sort of get the New Providence sanitary landfill up and running and get it running right is because we wanted to increase the garbage collection. And a big part, obviously, if you increase it to twice weekly, you're increasing the volume being received at the landfill.
Yeah.
And so we had to get that component going, and we had to get that other component going. So people will start to notice it. I mean, as a matter of fact, I mean, we even made sideburns. If Sideburns says it's good, it's good.
It's good.
But I say that tongue in cheek because he also says when some things are bad. But the point I'm actually making is this, is that twice weekly garbage collection is a big part of interrupting the cycle of flies and rodents. Mm-hmm. New Providence is plagued with rodents and flies. A big part of that is the food sources and the way we actually store waste. For the most part, we store waste in open containers in the front of our yards. And if you'll notice, like when you go to Miami, everybody goes to Miami, you don't see garbage cans in the front of people's yards in the city limits. They're inside and they're brought out on a particular date. And we hope to improve that service, but until we get to sort of a form of local government in New Providence, then you're not going to see the full benefit, because really this is a function of local government. However, what we propose to do is to continue with the twice weekly, increase bulk waste collection in the over-the-hill areas and parts of the city of New Providence, as a matter of fact, throughout the entire island of New Providence. And what we hope to do is to get rid of those derelict vehicles, get rid of those old refrigerators, what they call white waste. Mm-hmm. But what I want to say is that we didn't get to this stage overnight. Yeah. It didn't become this sort of trashy overnight. So it's going to take some time. It'll be some lag time, but we are working at it. We are putting our best efforts, and we're putting the monies behind it to sort of get this job done. And in the meantime, we've brought the magistrate up to speed so that we can prosecute people, and we're starting to reach out to the young people so we can have them think in a different way, and they can sort of train their parents and their guardians.
Talk about housing. That's another one of your very important initiatives.
It's very important.
You started kind of slowly, 10 lots, not houses. You're actually providing service lots.
Correct. Well, let me explain a little bit of the thinking behind it. When we came to office, a lot of what was being offered to the public was overpriced. I mentioned it in the House of Assembly, and I stand by those comments. So what we hope to do, and what we have done, is we've introduced service lots. We did 10 in Sunset Close subdivision. We did 10 in Lionel Davis, and we're about to unveil another 320 in Carmichael Village. Now, what does that mean? Here's what that means. That means then that in a New Providence setting, if you're a young person, you can own a piece of the rock for $25,000 or less. Now, I want everybody within the sound of my voice to really let that resonate, because this is that moment. Never mind the politics of it. People can say what they want. You will never get another chance in your lifetime to own a piece of land in New Providence for under $25,000. And that's what we have done. And so what you're going to start to see happen is, as people qualify, and we urge people to take advantage of this. We urge you to take advantage of this. As you start to qualify for the land and for the mortgage, we're going to see the trickle-down effect in the construction industry, because we believe that it's morally wrong to take advantage of someone's desire to be a homeowner by overcharging them. Let them enter into negotiations, not with some preferred bidder, but with the construction person of their choice at the price that can be negotiated to build a home of their dreams.
Persons wanting to buy land, they're going to buy that land from the government?
Correct.
Through the mortgage corporation?
No. The Department of Housing owns the land asset.
Okay.
Most people don't have $25,000 in their bank account, or $125,000 to construct a home. So they have to go to a lending agency. So there's a separation, right? Remember, the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation is one of any number of lending providers in this country. That one is just operated by the government. It's our personal favorite, of course. It comes under the Ministry of Environment and Housing. But there are others. There are the private banks as well. Mm-hmm. But you have to seek financing to buy the lot from the Department of Housing. So we own the land. We want to sell you the land. If you come in and then you qualify means you're a Bahamian citizen. Mm-hmm. You know, you meet all of the other antecedents, and then you also should go to a lending institution to meet their matriculation requirements or their requirements to get the loan. And I want to say that we're rolling this out in the Family Island as well. We just unveiled 60 lots, 60, in Central Pines, Abaco. Same thing. I just finished signing conveyances for people in Crossing Rocks who would live there all of those years and they never had title documents to their land. We are about empowering people through ownership of land. You know something? The most fundamental thing that we can do for any of our citizens is to give them land and make them landowners so they have a stake in this country. That's a very fundamental premise.
All of your rollouts, as far as the service lots are concerned, they are subscribed?
No, not all.
No?
No, remember, we have 320 in Carmichael Village.
No, you haven't rolled that out as yet.
But we are in the process of receiving applications. We're in the civil design phase. We had to reconfigure. Let me take 10 steps back. When we came to office, we met a design in place that only allowed for some 260 lots. We reconfigured that subdivision such that we now get 320 lots. Bear in mind, the size of the lots didn't change. But what we did, instead of having curvy roads, would you believe that? We just made them the same configuration as the Dignity Gardens on the eastern side of the subdivision. And by doing that simple configuration change, we were able to accommodate up to 320, plus a space for a school, plus commercial sites. So we intend to roll that out by the end of the year. But we are receiving applications now. We don't encourage, I know sometimes you want to procrastinate, but this isn't that kind of time. This is the time to seize the opportunity, seize the moment. This is the time now.
And we don't have enough time to go into it, obviously. You also have some conservation efforts that you're engaged in. Sure. That you will be able to talk to us about at another time.
I look forward to the invitation. I'm always available.
But that will include coral restoration, that kind of thing?
Well, what we hope to do is to increase the amount of marine protected areas. And we're working very closely with the Department of Marine Resources, the Nature Conservancy, and of course the Bahamas National Trust. Those are kind of like our partners. But we've come to understand that some of the best ways to conserve and preserve these commercially viable, important fishery species is to have an area where we leave them alone. Let them reproduce and do their thing to add to the biological stock, to add to the stock that we can actually go out and fish so that the fishers can enjoy an important livelihood. Because after all, they are the third pillar of our economy.
In your mind, the Ministry of Housing and Environment is on track for what the government and you want to do with it?
I think that of all the other ministries, the Ministry of Environment and Housing is essential. And let me just explain that very briefly. Because In every other ministry, there's a dichotomy, there's a separateness. There's a you either need it or you don't. But everyone you see today, everyone you see is going to need a home. They're going to need a place to lay their head. And everyone you see today is going to be breathing the same air, drinking the same water that we all drink. So my ministry is one of connections, one of bringing people together. So when you look at that flag and you see the triangle and you see the stripes, what you see is a determined people, determined to use their natural resources for the benefit of all.
Thank you again, Minister. I'll invite you back at another time.
I look forward to it.
And thank you for watching A Closer Look. Remember, you can also see us on Facebook and on YouTube.